This is the kind of dividend history that gets my attention. I didn't know about this feature. And if you use a chart from, say, Yahoo Finance or most finance websites, they ignore dividends. Of all the research websites and apps that I use, the one that I use the most often is Seeking Alpha. Here are the top 5 tools that I use on Seeking Alpha in the order that I typically use them. I usually start here because a solid dividend history is essential before I'll even consider an investment. This is the kind of dividend history that gets my attention. Now, Altria is a complicated company with a lot of pros and cons, but there's no denying that it has a magnificent dividend history. It's long, going all the way back to 1989. It's consistent. There were no cuts during the recession or the pandemic, and it only goes in one direction, up. And if you hover the mouse over the individual bars, you can see the specific dividend payouts. To access this feature, you just type the ticker symbol into the search box, then click on Dividends and Dividend History. I usually click on Max to see the full history. Before we move on to dividend tool number 2, a quick disclaimer: I'm not a financial advisor. I'm simply a retired investor sharing the research I do for my portfolio. I make these videos to give you some ideas for your own research. The dividend yield chart gives you a sense of how the current dividend compares to its past. For example, SCHD is paying 3.76% as I record this. So is that high or low for SCHD? The 10-year chart shows that for most of that time, SCHD was below 3% yield. So now it's clearly above its average. In fact, the only time that the yield on SCHD has been higher is during that peak panic phase of the pandemic in late March, early April of 2020. That was the only time that the yield breached 4%, and it held there for less than 3 weeks. So if you're waiting for SCHD to yield, say, 5%, then you probably have to wait until there's more fear in the market than there was during that period in 2020. And there was a lot. To use this feature, just click on Dividends and then Dividend Yield. Total return shows us the return on investment for price action and dividends paid. And this is essential for any dividend investor because in many cases, most of the returns come from the dividends. And if you use a chart from, say, Yahoo Finance or most finance websites, they ignore dividends. For example, if we look at Ares Capital on a Yahoo Finance chart, it appears to lag the S&P 500 over the past 5 years, and that's simply because it ignores dividends. Same 5-year period on a total returns chart. Now that dividends are included, we can see that Ares Capital actually outperformed the S&P 500. For the first year I had a membership with Seeking Alpha, I didn't know about this feature because it's under the Momentum tab, so I think a lot of users don't even know about it. There are 5 graphs under the Momentum tab, and total return is the second of those 5. Now by default, it compares the ticker you enter to the S&P 500, but you can delete that and you can add other funds or stocks or indexes. For example, I could add the ticker symbol MAIN and delete the S&P 500. And now we can see over a 10-year period that Ares Capital and Main follow a fairly similar pattern. But Main has pulled away from Ares in the past 12 months. And you can also customize the dates for a specific time period. This next tool is quick and easy. Dividend Estimates shows the average of analysts' forecasts for a stock. Now, it's not precise because, of course, nobody can actually predict the future. And most times you look at this, it's just a continuation of the current trend. But what I'm looking for is the scenario where that doesn't happen and there's a sudden spike or drop, because that means there's some specific information that's available that may affect future dividend payouts. I'll give you a quick example. Ready Capital's dividend is forecast to drop from $1.66 to $1.59. So clearly something's up. And the 5th tool that we'll look at today is where I spend most of my time because it's a massive collection of articles on just about any stock or fund you could name. And the articles range from here's why I'm buying or selling the stock right now, which is more about timing, to a full deep dive on the business or the financials or both. I have 2 main objectives when I'm using this analysis tool. The first one is obvious: to get information. For example, I looked at Ready Capital's dividend estimates and there's a projected decline. So why is that? So I go over to analysis, and the first article actually does a great job of explaining what's going on. Ready Capital entered into a merger with Broadmark Realty, and Broadmark Realty is in a state of distress with declining revenues. Why would Ready Capital want to merge with a company like that? Well, Broadmark has far less debt, so the merger results in Ready Capital effectively deleveraging. So in this example, two tools were actually working together. I used the dividend estimates to find out that the dividend was projected to decline, and the analysis section to give the backstory. Now, my second objective for the analysis tool is to find opposing views, people who disagree on the outlook for a stock or a fund. If every author is just a fanboy or fangirl, then I'm just stuck in an echo chamber of confirmation bias, and that's not really helpful. Instead, I want to read arguments for and against and then come to my own conclusions. For example, there are plenty of bullish articles on Ready Capital, so I wanted to read this bearish article. And that article gives an analysis of how the author uses book value to determine whether it's a good time to buy or sell Ready Capital. Now, at the time the article was written, his recommendation was a sell, but it was written back in December of last year. And at that time, the price was higher, but you can use his methodology to make your own determination of whether Ready Capital is currently attractively priced. I'll close out with a quick bonus tip. There are comments from subscribers below every article, but if you want access to all the comments for a given ticker symbol, let's say, for example, you just saw that a stock is up or down 10% for the day. So obviously something's up and you want to get the scoop. You can click on summary and then comments, and you'll get all the chatter for that stock or fund. Seeking Alpha has two levels of membership, and I've been using the lower cost of those two. It's called Premium for the past 6 years. Now, the price may change by the time you're watching this video, but as I record it, the link in the description gives a 58% discount on the first year, which comes out to less than $10 a month. And if you're unsure, there's also a free trial available. If your portfolio is over, say, 10K and Seeking Alpha helps you find one good fund or avoid one bad stock, then it pays for itself pretty quickly. That wraps it up for my top 5 dividend tools on Seeking Alpha. If there are any dividend investing tools that you use regularly, feel free to share them in the comments below. More armchair income coming soon.